What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wildcat Dash here on Dash Sports TV. My name is Jacob Mennuti. I'm joined once again, as always, with my co-host Ryan Wall. Ryan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I can't believe we're only 8 days away from Pac-12 football.
Yeah, 8 days from the football season, 1 week from Saturday. Honestly, same. I seriously cannot believe it either. I feel like, we were just making our first episode of Wildcat Dash talking about how far away the football season is. Actually, I think we didn't even know if we were having a football season the first week that we made these episodes, and now here we are talking about the games next week. Time really flies. Seriously though, I just want to talk about it a little bit more. I'm just so excited. Like we're gonna be having Pac-12 football all day next Saturday, like all day. They space the games out. They're all gonna be on national TV. Like I'm just gonna be watching Pac-12 football like all day next week. Like I'm so excited. Like I know the Pac-12 isn't like a premier conference, but like the Pac-12 is just like extra special to me. Like like I grew up on the West Coast. I've been following U of A sports since high school, so I'm just super excited. But well, I'll get back on track now. I'll stop going off on a tangent so we can actually start our show now. Let's talk about the defensive line a little bit here, Ryan. We know how questionable Arizona's defense is going to be this season. A ton of holes on that side of the ball, but I think that there might be a little bit of a bright spot on the defensive side here, and especially on that defensive line. They've got a lot of options that they could choose from. So give me your predictions here for this position group. Who do you think will be the starters for the D-line come week one?
Yeah, I mean, they have some very talented veterans here. I'm looking at a few guys, senior J.B. Brown, Aaron Blackwell transfer, Trevon Mason, and Regan Terry are the main group of guys that I think will take over this year. I think the guy that really stood out to me early on in team press conferences was Aaron Blackwell. Just his work ethic and already his connection with the line coach Stan Egan. I think he's due for a great season with the Wildcats, and I think there's a lot of upside here. I mean, the defense, as we know, is going to struggle, but I think this D line could be a bright spot, while the secondary could show some not so bright spots there.
Yeah, I don't think we know exactly, what scheme they're going to be running. We could see 3 defensive linemen, we could see 4 D linemen. But for me, I think there are 2 locks at that position, and you mentioned them earlier, but it's Aaron Blackwell and Roy Lopez. I think those are the 2 dudes that everybody has been talking about in camp, like the media availabilities. Like we've been asking them all camp, who are some guys that have stood out to you in camp, blah, blah, blah. And the 2 names that always keep brought up among that defensive group is Aaron Blackwell and Roy Lopez. Like those are the 2 dudes. So like I see them being auto locks at the inside defensive line positions. But besides those 2 guys, like I think the rest of the starting spots are kind of up for grabs. Like you mentioned it, and like I definitely think that there are a ton of options for this team that they can choose from. Like I think Trayvon Mason is going to get a lot of playing time this year, like you mentioned. Keon Bars, Miles Tapusoa, Mikey Irving, Nahi Salunga. Like there's a lot of like legit big body dudes that Arizona can line up in the trenches. Like, like big 300-pound guys. Like this is not like a usual thing for Arizona to be talking about having like a bunch of like big guys that they can put on the line. But like, it was only just a few years ago, Arizona was lining up a bunch of, 250-pound guys at that D-line position. And like, I was like getting secondhand embarrassment watching them just getting tossed around by the opposing 300-pound offensive linemen. But yeah, I think this is a pretty legit a defensive line group, and I'm extremely optimistic about this position group. I think there's a lot of options here for sure.
Yeah, and another guy that a lot of people have been raving about from the start of camp here is Regan Terry. A lot of people think this guy is going to be very good here at Arizona, and he's a young player, but just his size, he's 6'4", 285. He's gained a bunch of weight since coming since coming into Tucson, and people think he could do well here. I mean, we don't know how much playing time he'll get. Hopefully We'll get some. Another guy that I want to look at is JB Brown. He's a senior, and he's also a big guy, 270 pounds almost. And I think as a veteran on this team, he's going to get a lot of playing time next to Aaron Blackwell and Roy Lopez.
Well, that's the thing. Like all of these defensive linemen are like so experienced. Like we might not even see Regan Terry and some of the younger guys get time just because we don't think Arizona needs to play the younger guys. Like all of the guys are either grad transfers, JUCO products, or they've been with the team for 3+ years. Like we haven't really mentioned, Regan Terry at all, but we might not even see him because we don't know if we're going to need him on the defensive line because there's so many other options ahead of him. Like honestly, like shout out to Kevin Sumlin and his staff for coming in and just beefing up that position group. Like we can't really give someone credit for doing a whole lot here, but like he really has fixed that group and that D line position. Like that was the one thing that Rich Rod kind of left this team like in a bad spot. Like I always liked Rich Rod. I was a little upset when we fired him, but like I don't know. Like the one knock I had on him was just that he was just not a very good recruiter, like not a very balanced recruiter. Like he would focus on a lot of position groups and then just forget about the defensive line. Like for Kevin Sumlin just to come in and fix that position group right away for not only bringing in guys that can help eventually, but bringing in guys that can help like right away. Like finding these JUCO products, finding these transfers, these graduate transfers. Like I mean that position group was just a mess when Rich Rod left it. So for someone just to come in and fix that group, like you got to give him some credit for that. So shout out to him for that, honestly.
Yeah, like adding those guys with Lopez and Blackwell, those are two big guys, and they're going to make a huge impact this season. I mean, it's they do have some young players, but with this group, I don't think they're going to focus as much with the young guys. I think that's where with the defensive backs, the cornerbacks, the linebackers, I think that's where they're going to focus. They're going to give some more playing time to the freshmen and sophomores.
And hopefully this defensive line can bail out the rest of the defense. Like, I mean, like I've always thought that that the defensive line is just such an important piece of any defense. Like, your defense is just gone to a next level when you have an elite defensive line. Like, if you have guys that can plug up the run games, like who cares how bad your linebackers are? Like they might not even need to get tackles because your big 300-pound dudes are blocking the A gaps and the B gaps, like, and vice versa. Like if you can have the best linebackers in the world, but if your D line sucks, like you're just gonna have that pulling guard or that extra running back just coming in and sealing off the linebacker. So like to have a good defensive line, I think is actually really good for Arizona because it can bail out these inexperienced linebackers and really help them out at that position. Because like if you're able to plug up the trenches, like who cares if your linebackers can't make a tackle because they won't need to make a tackle because they can't get past the defensive line. You know what I mean? So like I really hope that this defensive line ends up being the strong suit for like I think out of any of the position groups, if you want to have a strong position group with a bunch of other mediocre position groups, I think the D line is the one you kind of start with and then you build around that. Because if you start going the other way, it's the same thing with the secondary. Like if you have good defensive backs, it doesn't matter if your D line can't get a sack and can't get to the quarterback because they've got 10 seconds to throw the ball. Like of course somebody's going to get open. So like it starts with the defensive line. You need to have a good defensive line. And I think we can rag on this defense all we want, but if this defensive line actually shows up and does what it could potentially do, then I don't know. I think there could be a chance this defense isn't god awful, and it's just awful because the defensive line has really helped it out. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something along with that. Something that I think the D line needs to do a better job of, and hopefully they will, is just simply getting to the quarterback. Like if you look at the stats last year, each guy maybe like they all combined for I think like 10 about sacks, something like that around there. And it's just like that's not acceptable. And like we talked about, if you're not putting pressure on the quarterback, not getting to the quarterback in a timely manner, then it's just going to open up the field, and that's where the blame goes, and the cornerbacks and the back of the defense struggles.
Yeah, I think part of that last year was the scheme. Like I'm pretty sure like halfway. I don't know if Arizona ended with the least amount of sacks, but like halfway through the season, like Arizona was literally like dead last in Power Five sack numbers. Like out of all the Power Five teams, like they had like the least amount of sacks. Like it was such a problem last year, and I think part of it was the scheme. Like there were a lot of 3-man blitzes, which I absolutely hate. Like I don't. There's no reason to be blitzing three guys on second and medium. Like so, I think part of that was the scheme, but a lot of it you need guys to step up, and I'm very optimistic about Jalen coming back and going back to his natural position at outside linebacker rather than having to play end. Because last season, I think Arizona needed him to play end. They didn't have a lot of options on the defensive line, but they really do now. So I'm really optimistic about this group. I think we will see a little bit of an increase in the pass rush, and hopefully we'll see a major increase in the run support as well.
Yeah, as you just said real quick, I do believe that linebacking core will be better this year and is a little underrated.
Yeah, we'll move on now. We'll talk about the coaches over at Arizona. They hired a couple of them in the offseason, 5 new coaches actually. Defensive coordinator Paul Rhodes, outside linebacker coach Andy Boo, defensive line coach Stan Egan, defensive backs coach Greg Burns, and running back coach AJ Stewart. So 4 of those coaches are on the defensive side of the ball, and understandably so, right? Like that defense was certainly in need of an overhaul. So, Ryan, give me your thoughts on these new coaches. I mean, out of all of them, which one do you believe will make the biggest impact next season in 2020?
The answer that it needs to be is Paul Rhodes. It's as simple as that. This defense, as we know, all they did last season was give up points from the opposing teams, and the way that's going to turn around is by Paul Rhodes simply just recruiting better at those spots and just being a better influence come game days.
Yeah, I personally am really excited to see the new defensive coordinator. Like I think the firing of Marcel Yates was long overdue. Like he was a solid recruiter. Like he seemed like a nice guy. Like everybody really liked him, but like just he had so much time to turn this defense around, and there was just no improvement. Like you can make the argument that the defense got worse every single year that he was here. Like it just seemed like excuse after excuse with like, oh, we didn't have the guys we wanted to recruit. We had guys that were injured. Like you were here for, I think Marcel Yates was here for like 5 years, and just that's enough time to fix this defense, and he just never did. So like I'm really glad to see Paul Rhodes kind of step in, and especially hiring a coach that gets a full off season to rework his game plan into the team. Like because when we fired Marcel Yates in the middle of last season, like Chuck Cecil came in and took over as the interim defensive coordinator, and we really didn't see a whole lot of the defense get any better. And like I don't really blame him at all for that, because you can't really come in and install a completely new defensive scheme in the middle of the season. So like I think now that you can't really fault Chuck Cecil for that, right? So like I think now that Paul Rhodes is here and he's had a full offseason, a very eventful and irregular offseason, but still a full offseason nonetheless. But for him to have that now to come in and kind of rework his game plan into the team, and I'm really optimistic about that. I also really like defensive line coach Stan Egan. I think that was a great hire as well. I think he has just a ton of coaching experience. I think I read it was 40 straight seasons of him being a coach somewhere. Like that's honestly super impressive. Like I know like bouncing around from program to program in those 40 years, that may kind of seem a little sketchy. Like, oh, why is he not staying on one program? But that's just kind of how college football coaching is. Like college football coaching is always a merry-go-round. It's always a carousel. So like for him to always find a job year after year, that really tells you something about what kind of coach Stan Egan really is. And he's had a ton of experience along the way. He's coached guys like Von Miller, Michael Bennett when they were together at Texas A&M. He's already got coaching experience and chemistry with Aaron Blackwell when they were together last season at New Mexico. So I really like that hire as well, and I think that was a clear upgrade at that coaching spot for sure.
Yeah, Stan Egan, he was very impressive when I heard him a few weeks back at a press conference, and just some things that he wanted to put into his defensive line's mind this year was just tackling hard harder, making the right tackles, and just being more aggressive. And he brings that energy that I think not just the defensive line, but this whole defense needs. I think he's just going to affect the whole defense as a whole. Like he is such an energetic guy and brings, as you said, that 40 plus years of experience that people are going to respect. And I think he's going to be very good for this defense.
Yeah, I agree. Also kind of want to shout out offensive line coach Kyle Devan. Like he's not a brand new coach. This is his second season here in Tucson, but he's just done such a great job with this offensive line. Like he's done such a good job on the recruiting trail. Like, this is the deepest offensive line depth chart I think that we've seen for a while. Like it's so hard to build depth. I think the idea of having a lot of guys is kind of underrated. Like you want to have 5 good linemen, but you want to have guys behind them, right? In case one of them gets hurt. So like I think that he's just done such a good job. Like, and it was just like he's had pretty big shoes to fill, taking over for Joe Gilbert, who is now the offensive line coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So like that was certainly some big shoes to fill when he came in. But he picked up right where he left off, and I think Kyle Devan is just doing such an awesome job so far. Like, and he's just such a great guy too. Like, I was lucky enough to attend a fall camp practice a few weeks ago, and I was watching Coach Devan work with his offensive linemen, and he was just such an interesting coach to listen to. Like, just the things he was saying and the drills that he was running, like I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but like, I really liked him, and I really liked what he had to say and the way he was coaching the offensive line. He's very active on social media too. Like, he's just a great guy. He's a great guy to have as your offensive line coach. So I think he's done a great job so far. I just wanted to shout him out real fast, just kind of give him some credit, because I really do like what he's been doing so far.
Yeah, and the outlook of the whole coaching staff, I think they're in a very good place that they haven't been in a few years. As we just talked about, a few of the coaches and just the coordinators with Rhodes and Mazzone, like these guys, these are like valuable, experienced coaches, and I think they got the right pieces around. I've been a little hard on Sumlin over the past few months. It's gonna fall on him, and it's gonna be able to see if the pieces can just fit together.
Yeah, I think experience is the strong suit of this coaching staff. Like we talked about Stan Egan and how long he's been coaching, but Paul Rhodes also has head coaching experience. When he was at Iowa State, he was, he had his time as, at UCLA as the defensive backs coach. What I'm saying is that everybody has experience, and they've been in a position of power before. Like I think the defensive line coach before Stan Egan, I think his best, his best thing on his resume was that he was the head coach at like some JUCO program. Like that's not going to cut it at a Power 5 program. So like I think that was just such a clear upgrade. And I just really like this coaching staff, and I like the overhaul that went down. I would have liked to see DeMarco Murray as our running back coach for a few more years, but he got the call from his alma mater at Oklahoma, so we didn't get to see him for very long. But that was a lot of fun seeing DeMarco Murray on the sidelines.
Yeah, I was sad to see him leave too. Was a great NFL running back and great college running back, and he also brought a lot of experience for being such a young guy.
Just the recruiting aspect of DeMarco Murray as well. Like if DeMarco Murray showed up at your front porch and was asking you to play for Arizona, like, absolutely, I'll come play for you. Like I'll be wherever you are. But like, obviously he's not here anymore, so we can't really enjoy that. But yeah, I really do like this coaching staff. I think there's a lot of experience, among these guys, and I think it's heading in the right direction. I don't think at this point there's any more excuses. I think we've built the right coaching staff. The athletic director, Dave Hickey, they've put together the guys that they want. It's go time, right? No more excuses, and no more, these are not the guys I want. These aren't the guys I recruited. Oh, these aren't the coaches I wanted when I first came in here too, right? Because Marcel Yates was here in the Rich Rod era when someone came in. So you can't make the argument anymore that someone isn't working with the people he wants to work with. Like it's go time for Arizona. Like there's just no more excuses.
Yeah, I totally agree. They got all the right young pieces, it seems, on the defensive end, on the offense. It's just gonna be able to see if they can do it in the next year or two. I mean, I don't think, like I've said, I don't think Coach Kevin Sumlin is going to be here. If they don't start to put some wins on the board, I don't think he's going to be here past next season.
Yeah, well, that is certainly a discussion for another time because we can go down that rabbit hole about Kevin Sumlin. But well, we're certainly going to see a ton of new faces on the sideline this season, and we're also going to be seeing a few new players with the captain logo on their jerseys this season. The Wildcats announced this past week its 2020 captains for this season, and they were voted amongst their teammates as they are every single year. I'll read you the list right now. Quarterback Grant Gunnell, tight end Bryce Woma, cornerback Lorenzo Burns, linebacker Anthony Pandy, and linebacker Jalen Harris. So, out of those 5 guys, Ryan, which one do you think is the most impactful one? Did any of them surprise you at all when you saw that they got the captain's logo on their jerseys? Just give me your thoughts on these.
Nah, no one in particular surprised me. The easy choice for the most important player, is Grant Gunnell. But I think the player that his success will impact the team the most probably is Anthony Pandy. He stood out as the leader of that secondary and that defense. And all of we've heard so far from the restart of camp is great things about Anthony Pandy. He seems like a leader to the young linebackers. He's taken on a bigger role since some fellow teammates left. And I think his success will lead to that defense being way better than last season.
I really like Anthony Pandy and Jalen Harris getting the nods as the team captain. I think that, they picked the right guys. Like, there was none of them that shocked me that I was like, why the heck is he a team captain? Like, I think they got these all right. I really like that, Bryce Woma got a team captain in particular. He's just such an awesome guy. Like, he's just such a good leader. He's always so confident and cheerful in his media availabilities, and he really just has no reason to be that upbeat. Like, since Arizona hates tight ends so much and they never throw to him, and he's just along for the ride, and I love him so much. I just have so much respect for him to kind of stick around. Like, he could have easily just transferred somewhere where he could get more playing time, and he never did. He stuck around. He's a senior this year, and he even said that he's going to stay another year next season just because with the NCAA eligibility, that is a tongue twister, the eligibility rules, because that, he could stay an extra year if he wants to. And he already said that he wants to do that because, he just loves college football so much and he loves his team. He said he never had any sort of feelings of, wanting to transfer this coming off season. Like, he's just such a great guy. Like, he just fits, he's such a great team leader. Like, I don't have anything, else to say about him, like, other than he's just such a great guy.
Yeah. As we've talked about last week, is they need to get the tight end more involved, and that's good. That's good that he possibly could be here for another season, so maybe he can create some chemistry with Grant Gunnell. And none of these choices really shocked me. I mean, like, the 3 guys on the defensive side, they're all like the standout players there, the guys that need to have the biggest impact in this coming season. And it's going to be fun to see this team. I think this team could really shock some people this season.
Yeah, I want to circle back to Anthony Pandy and Jalen Harris a little bit because you mentioned them, and I wanted to kind of touch up on them as well. Like, this year in particular, I feel like with the departures on defense and especially at linebacker, like, this young linebacker group is looking for someone to lead them. Like, it feels like that meme of Will Smith standing in the middle of his empty house, just, like, looking around, like, just tearing up of how empty it is. Like, that's probably what's going on right now in the Arizona locker room after all those guys that have left. Like Anthony Pandy and Jalen Harris are, like, going to be the cornerstone pieces of not only this linebacker core, but, like, the entire defense. I hate to make another stupid reference here, but, like, I compare the relationship of, like, Anthony Pandy and, like, DJ Mourning, as this young guy DJ Mourning, to, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, like this, like, Jedi and Padawan relationship, like, minus the part, of course, where Anakin betrays Obi-Wan and turns to the dark side. But, like, hopefully we don't see DJ Mourning kill the Jedi younglings and play for ASU next season. But anyways, that was a stupid comparison. That was probably a little bit of an overstatement. But I just really like a little Star Wars reference in there. But, like, you get my point, right? Like like Jalen Harris and Anthony Pandy are these seniors. They're these guys that people are going to lean on, and this young linebacker group needs to look up to. So I really enjoy that they're getting the captain's nod, and it's pretty clear that those are the two leaders on the defensive side of the group, and Lorenzo Burns as well. I don't think we've given him any credit, but he's been here since day one, leading that secondary group. Like I said, I don't think Arizona got any of these wrong. I think there's a lot of really good captains this season, and I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Arizona is a sneaky little team. I don't think they'll compete for the South or anything like that, but to peg us as worse than Colorado and worse than UCLA, I don't really see it. But I don't know. I really like these team captains, and I think they're trending in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, and with Jalen Harris and Anthony Pandy, since they're older guys, it's really going to be interesting to see how much of an impact they truly make on young linebackers this season. Because when you get to next season, unless we get some older transfers that come in or whatever, like we got just the young group to throw out there. So then it's even worse than this year where we had Tony Fields and others transfer. So yeah, like I think the team and the defense is going to rely heavily on them in that group.
I think we've already seen a little bit of that. We're thinking about when will we start to see the older guys taking the younger players under the wing. I think we're already starting to see it. Like we've heard about Jalen Harris playing alongside with Keneba Watson and sharing that position group. And Jalen Harris has talked about how great of a kid he is and sharing that outside linebacker position with him and teaching him everything he knows and like just taking him under his wing. Like I don't know. Like I really like that. There's a good balance of experienced guys to kind of lead this team, especially at that linebacker position group. Like after, Colin Schooler and Tony Fields left, I think everything was just like in panic mode. Like everybody was just like, what are we going to do? Right. Like, so I think that Anthony Pandy and Jalen Harris are two guys that are really good pieces to lean on. And I really like their leadership. I think they are definitely a team captain in my eyes. So I'm really optimistic.
Yeah, and this defensive group, they're very young, but as we've heard about in the last few weeks, they're going to get some playing time this year, as Paul Rhodes has said recently, and that's really going to be a tough test early on, and they could struggle, but in those weeks 5, 6, and that's the last 7th week, that's where we're going to look to see if they actually have something in that group for the coming seasons. Yeah,
we are certainly looking forward to the end of the season. The beginning of the season. But that is where we're going to end things today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in as always and watching. And a reminder that we're switching our schedule around. We're here on Thursdays at 5 p.m. starting next week, as we are going to be doing crossover episodes with the opposing school starting next week. So if you want to check out Wildcat Dash next year, our boy Ryan Wall will be on their show next Friday previewing the Week 1 matchup. So you can go ahead and check that out. We'll also have our own Wildcat Dash on Thursday at 5 p.m. previewing the game. So you can check both of those shows out next week. We also have a collaboration with Sports Pac-12 where we write columns. Our boy Ryan Wall also writes columns on Sports Pac-12. So you can check that out over at sportspac12.com. And you can check us out over on our website as well, where we post all of our shows and clips to that website. So you can check that out over at www.dashsports.tv. And make sure you follow us on social media as well, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. That's the end of my spiel. Thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.